Good afternoon and welcome to this FinGraphs podcast on Dukascopy TV. We will first start with a cross-asset view, including Bitcoin, to try to understand the dynamics behind the recent rally. On this fingraphs.com mosaic, we've put Bitcoin, the mini S&P future, Euro, US dollar, and gold, both on a daily and hourly basis. What we can see is that the dynamics on all four assets, which we might call kind of anti-dollar assets, are still uptrending. You can see the bear signals, the bull signals here, and the green projection lines, which probably extend on all of them into the end of the quarter, perhaps into mid-late September. You can see that Bitcoin does look a bit stretched at the moment on our risk index, and hence the current slight consolidation that we're seeing. We think it's intermediate and probably continues higher from late August, early September. Similarly, or very similarly, the euro is showing a similar slight consolidation, as well as gold here, which is slightly more defensive and is seeing a bit more of a correction. But again, we believe that all should resume the uptrend from late August, early September. The mini S&P future is a bit more linear. It is less overbought at the moment. It is benefiting from a ping pong between growth factors, which at some point have accelerated quite strongly, and then since mid-late July from a slight rally in cyclical factors. So it's a bit of the all-weather trade at the moment, but also a similar dynamic here that probably extends into the end of the third quarter. So if Bitcoin continues with its current correlations, we believe it should probably rise for another month or so. Shorter term, we are currently in a consolidation, less so on the mini S&P future, as cyclical factors are really accelerating at the moment. But you can see it on Bitcoin, on euro dollar, and on gold, which is slightly more defensive, so has seen a bit more of a correction. But all seem to point that over the next week or so into late August, perhaps early September, and especially on euro dollar or Bitcoin here, we could see a target range perhaps towards the end of this week, early next week, and potentially down to 11,000 as a support on Bitcoin. Following that, a resume uptrend situation into September. Maybe we have a closer look at Bitcoin on this investor's view, which includes a weekly graph for the perspective over the next few quarters, a daily graph for the perspective over the next few months, and an hourly graph for the perspective over the next few weeks. For now, the weekly graph is still consolidating from the spike that it did in late 2017. But what we can say is that at least the smaller envelopes are turning up quite nicely. And it does seem that it was just a gigantic consolidation zone, and that we may go as far as to project the possibility of a new acceleration towards new highs over the next few quarters. Corroborating that, we could see that the risk index did all its work from being very overbought to now being quite oversold, and at some point should confirm this new acceleration up, this resume uptrend situation on this long-term weekly chart. On the daily, as you can see, there's a bit of exaggeration here on the envelopes and on the risk index, hence an intermediate correction, usually a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then a new acceleration up into September. We'll have a closer look at it in a few seconds. And on the hourlies, this consolidation range probably for another few days into support towards potentially 11,000, and then probably an interesting buy the dips opportunity. So quickly on the daily graph, yes, a bit of exaggeration, but we're still uptrending, possibly for another month or so, and potentially up to and perhaps above 14,000 until then. We also have a closer look at Bitcoin versus Ethereum. On this mosaic, we have the Bitcoin daily graph, the Ethereum daily graph, the relative Ethereum versus Bitcoin, and we've put Euro US dollar again because we think it's quite similar to all these pairs. The graphs of Bitcoin and Ethereum are quite similar, and both are getting towards a slight exaggeration at the moment, both on our risk index and on our envelopes, and hence the current correction. What is also interesting to see is that the relative graph is also very, very similar, as well as similar to the Euro US dollar graph. So Ethereum does look like a high beta at the moment, which wasn't always, but we will see that in a kind of a growth theme with strong growth in initiatives for decentralized finance at the moment. So maybe consider from now on Ethereum as more a growth aggressive beta trade versus Bitcoin. And we can see that the dynamics are quite interesting on the hourly graph because all of them are consolidating in a very similar pattern. And here also, there's maybe a few more days left before it accelerates again to the upside. Finally, we look at the investors' views of Ethereum. It has already started to turn out. It was very, very oversold, turn up, sorry. It was very, very oversold on our risk index. Corrective targets over the next few quarters are giving us a potential resistance around 647, so almost 250 points higher than we are at the moment. This may be not achieved now, but perhaps next spring. But in the meantime, also quite an aggressive uptrend here on the daily, some consolidation at the moment, but possibly a new move up into late September, potentially towards 460, 470. In the meantime, shorter term, a bit of consolidation, another few days, and from late August, a resume trend situation into September. So both on Bitcoin and Ethereum, we would be quite positive for at least another month or so, possibly for buy the dips opportunity towards the end of August, early September, and then perhaps during early mid Q4, some retracement. But longer term, into next spring, we're still positive on both cryptocurrencies. Thank you very much and have a good week.